Welcome to Perf Damage.
Welcome.
This is the show where we talk about the forgotten histories of Hollywood.
That's right. And this week we are going to talk about a family that you may have never heard of, who we really have to thank for makeup in Hollywood. The makeup departments, makeup unions.
Yeah. The Academy Award getting acknowledged for makeup.
Mm-hmm. They started in the 20s, and the first one had lots of children, and then those children had children, and then those children have had children, and they've all worked in makeup.
Yeah, since from the silent era to the current era.
Yeah, so we're going to focus today about the beginning, so just the original and then the first wave. So
like the first wave.
The first wave,
yeah.
yes.
We're going to talk about George and all of his children.
Yeah, George Westmore and all of his sons that got into the makeup industry. Yes, they're all men. So if you want to hear more about the Westmores and hear a little bit about Hollywood history, about the makeup in Hollywood, you're in the right place.
Stay tuned. Oh no, not again. Hey movie lovers, I'm Adam.
And I'm Charlotte.
And welcome to Perf Damage.
We're a movie-obsessed husband and wife team who work in the film industry. I oversee film restoration at the oldest studio in Hollywood.
And I bring the inside track from film development and production. And we love to explore the hidden tales of movies past and present.
So join us for a cinematic journey like no other.
From classic gems to examining the art of the double feature. This is Perf Damage.
Popcorn popped, wine at the ready. Let's press play.
All right, so we're going to tell the tale of the Westmore family, which starts with
George,
the dad.
George is
and
the father.
Then, how many sons?
He has 6 sons. Mont is the oldest.
Okay, you got Mont.
Then he has the 2 twins,
Perc.
and Perc.
And Ern.
Wally, Bud, and then Frank.
And then Frank. All right. And those are the ones we're going to focus on. And those aren't even his only children.
No, there was
a
daughter, too.
But she's not in our story today.
Well, she never did makeup for the movies.
For the studios, So that's what we're focusing on today.
Why.
So let's get into it.
All right.
Oh, Ethel. Oh, you have outdone yourself. They say all the movie stores use Westmore. But yes, you gotta have the best on your big trip out to Hollywood. Oh, come on, step lively.
All right. So let's talk about the Westmores. And the best place to start is with Papa Westmore.
Yeah, George Westmore.
George Westmore. He was originally from the UK.
And he became famous by doing Winston Churchill's hair while he was in the army.
Random.
Well, I mean, he was known for his
barber skills.
Yeah. Winston Churchill actually sought him out. Then that's kind of what he built his career on, was that famous person.
Yeah. They got big there and then got too big for the aisle and left for the U.S. He didn't come directly to Hollywood.
His ultimate destination was Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
But he'd always been a big movie watcher, like a huge movie watcher. And he realized that all these people looked terrible on screen. He said that they were garish. Some of them looked like they were dead because they wore too much makeup.
Right, and because at the time, all the actors were doing their own makeup. They were doing their own wardrobe, doing their own makeup, so the makeup wasn't consistent.
It was like, man, Hollywood needs my help.
So you had some really good stories about George on his way to California.
He and his young family moved into what they thought was a hotel. They saw a bunch of people coming in and out all day long, but it happened all night long too. And so they eventually found out that it was a whorehouse that they had moved into. But George being George, he saw this as an opportunity. He said that he could give the madam of the house the most beautiful women in the entire state.
So it was sort of like he was seeing in the movies where their makeup was just not good.
Right.
And he was thinking, I can make these babes look better.
So he said, you know what? Why don't you let me work on your girls? It'll be great practice for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I can pick up a little extra cash
Yeah, right.
in the meantime. So, this work was actually kind of pioneering because he was able to do things because he wasn't just strictly working on their facial makeup. He was doing body makeup as well. So he was doing contouring really early on and pioneering a bunch of new makeup techniques that he then took to Hollywood with him. His wife realized that he just kept coming home later and later, and she never saw any of this supposed money he was supposed to be earning because basically he got paid in trade.
Yeah, money did not leave the house.
Yeah, it never left the house.
Oh, George.
George, that's an interesting guy.
Let's cut to George gets to Hollywood.
As soon as he got to Hollywood, he went to the most famous salon in the area. It was called Maison César. It was the salon of the stars at the time. Yeah, he went directly to that place to secure a job and spent hours demonstrating his makeup and hairdressing skills. While his family sat in the car just waiting for him. That was not an uncommon thing for his family, unfortunately.
So he gets hired at this place.
Cesar, who owned the place.
The great Cesar.
The great Cesar.
Well, who make the invention for this sausage, Cesar? Eh?
The greatest chef of all, Cesar.
Well. Don't you realize me?
Decided that he couldn't let this guy go. He had to have him. So he gave him a job on the spot. And then they went and looked for an apartment afterwards that was really close by. After his first day of work, he got really upset that he didn't see anybody famous. And so he lost it. He got home. He's like,
This stinks! This is total BS! The Abram boy is gonna... Oh, here they are.
This is a waste of my time. I'm not working on anybody famous yet. And so he takes things into his own hands and he goes driving and he goes into Griffith Park and he sees someone shooting a movie there and he drives on set. This is the silent era, so you're able to do that. So this is 1917, by the way. Mm-hmm. Purely in the silent era. So they weren't worried about people interrupting. People often sat and watched people. So he sees these guys shooting in Griffith Park. And he goes up to the director and he says, hey, I'm the greatest makeup man and I want to do makeup for your movie. So they give him a job, $15 a week. And he starts the very first movie studio makeup department. It was for Selig Studios. Basically, he would work on a lot of the animals.
The animals,
yes.
Yeah.
Selig owned a zoo. And a lot of his movies revolved around animals. Mm-hmm. Cowboys and animals, basically, were the kind of movies he was making.
And he didn't quit his other job while he did this.
No. He would drive to set at 4 a.m. He'd comb out the lion and
comb the lion's
mane. Do up all the cowboys and that kind of stuff. And then he'd go to his job at Maison César. After, the day was in full swing, around 10 or 11, he'd roll in and take clients. George actually created the first lace wig. It was a brand new style of wig making. They called it ventilating. He would punch all of the hairs singly into the lace wig.
Right, because at the time they were done in strips, right?
Yep. They would
and you
sew
still
them in
see
strips.
Cheap wigs done that way.
Yeah, but he created the lace wig. And so he was known as the greatest wig maker in the world. And he taught Person Earn how to do that very young. He also got them jobs at Maison César. They would sweep up hair and do that kind of stuff. After Selig Studios, he started working for Triangle Studios. And Triangle Studios was eventually bought by Warner Brothers and absorbed by them. But at the time, it was one of the A-list studios. Talmadge sisters worked there.
Constance and Norma.
Yep, Constance and Norma. And he became their hair guy and their makeup guy. And Black Pirate. God, why? I can never remember that guy's name.
Douglas Fairbanks.
Yes. For Douglas Fairbanks, he also created his famous mane.
Yeah,
he cut layers into his hair. He was the guy that created his signature haircut. He also created Mary Pickford's very famous curls, and he charged her $50 a curl, and he would deliver them in their own carrying case.
Oh, so they weren't her curls.
They were not her curls. They were...
like kind of clip-in, kind of extension-y kind of things?
Yeah, exactly, to fill out her hair. So you will never believe where he actually got the hair to make these curls.
I think I will believe it.
He got them from the ladies of the night.
The ladies of the night.
So he would get the hair and he would from them, and then he would make her famous curls and charge her $50 a curl for it. Wow, you just clunked your head against that.
I was waiting for it. So he was getting his name out there. Everybody was starting to know the Westmore name.
Because
Like, she's going to be very distracting. This is Asta, and she airlooks a lot.
yes, she does.
She's 15. So, bless her heart. Anyhow.
His oldest son, Mont Westmore, he didn't want to use the family name to get in. And so he ended up working for Paramount in the commissary. And there was a young star there named Valentino. And so he saw that Valentino was putting in a stable on the lot for his horses. He overheard him while they were building that. Rudolph Valentino said, "Man, I wish that my horses could get more exercise because I'm always on set. I don't get to ride them enough." So Mont, who really despised horses, didn't like them at all, started to take riding lessons afterward so that when the opportunity presented itself, he could be that guy. He jumped on the horses early one morning before work, and he's like riding them around, working them out. And Valentino walks in and he goes, "Oh, wow. I'm so happy that someone's riding them. They really need that." And he said, "I just love horses. I'd love to do this for you." And from that moment on, he became Valentino's valet,
Right.
his dresser. And then from that point, one day he was on set and he just happened to bring his makeup kit with him, of course. And he goes, "I'm a Westmore." And Valentino was very familiar with the Westmore name. And so he totally revolutionized his look. He plucked his eyebrow. He removed a lot of the heavy eye makeup that he wore. Mm-hmm. He had a very signature look with that slick back hair. Valentino would use actual grease for that. And Mont saw an opportunity to use like a more professional pomade that would be less greasy looking on camera. Yeah, he kind of created the whole Valentino look. The two of them were tied together until Valentino's really early death, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that wasn't it for Mont. Mont, he was a go-getter. So after Valentino, he did King of Kings for Cecil B. DeMille. He ended up becoming the makeup department head at Selznick Studios. He worked on Rebecca, Gone with the Wind. That brings us to the twins, Perc and Ern Westmore. Perc became the most powerful Westmore. In fact, he was actually called the fifth Warner brother at certain points in his career. Yeah. He was really, really tight with Jack Warner. There was a story about how Humphrey Bogart walked off the set of one of his movies, and Jack Warner called Perc because he had a really close relationship with Bogart. And he said, "Hey, can you do something about this? We need him back on set tomorrow." So Perc worked his magic. He invited him out to Don the Beachcomber, which was his place.
Nice.
They got a little bit hammered, and finally he goes, "Hey, Jack Warner called me, and he said he really needs you to do the film, and, he needs you back on set tomorrow." And Humphrey Bogart looked at him, and he goes, "Damn it, I knew that Jack got to you, and that's why we were having such a good time." So Perc was associated with Warner Brothers for over 20 years. He was super powerful. He was the guy that kind of curated the name of Westmore. He became the head of the family after George died. Perc saw the name as a dynasty. He actually kind of wanted to curate the idea that they were royalty too. This is actually, that kind of leads into a funny story about him and Charles Laughton. So Charles Laughton and Perc did not get along at all. In fact, when Perc told him that they were royalty and showed him this coat of arms that he had made to Charles Laughton said to him, "You're so full of shit, your eyes are brown."
So wait, he had a coat of arms made for Westmore?
Yes.
Like
a Westmore coat of arms. It's on all of the makeup when they started their makeup company.
And he tried to
pretend like they were British royalty. Yes.
Do you think that George might have actually told him that?
I mean, he could have. Yeah, George liked to make up stories.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
But Charles Laughton knew. He knew all of British royalty, and so he knew he took one look at that and said, "This is total garbage.
Yeah.
And so that kind of got him off on the wrong foot. And then they ended up working together. This is how highly sought after Perc was. He was loaned out like a star was to RKO Studios to do makeup for
That's
them,
incredible.
for the Hunchback of Notre Dame. So,
well, the makeup in that is incredible.
Right.
It's not just makeup, it's special effects.
yes, he did physical rigs for that. Like the hump was this big 15-pound hump that he made that was strapped on to Charles Laughton through a series of leather straps.
Yeah, because he wanted to
feel like
right.
Quasimodo would have. Yeah.
Right.
And then it was also makeup effects and prosthetics. The eye that kind of drops down and droops. He actually created a rig underneath the prosthetic that attached to his other eyelid so that when he blinked, that eye blinked as well. And this had never been done before, the stuff that he was doing there. Yeah, so they didn't get along like the entire time. And the two of them fought like dogs on that movie set. At one point, the head of the studio had to come in and arbitrate between the two of them, and they sent them both home for 2 weeks while they were in pre-production. Yeah, so Perc created this like elaborate scam to get back at Charles Laughton. In fact, he brought Frank, the youngest brother of the Westmores, to be a witness. So he brought him to set under the auspices that he was going to learn that day from him. And he definitely learned from him. Like what he learned was you don't mess with Perc. So when they go into Charles Laughton's trailer, he gets down on all fours. It's the only way you can attach the hump. So he's down on all fours and he's strapping him in with the big leather bands. And he says, watch this. He always gets all sweaty and he wants something to drink. And Charles Laughton goes, water, I need water. And so Perc goes, oh, you need water, do you? So he grabs the bromo, pushes it in his face. And Charles Laughton looks at him and he goes, you wouldn't. And he goes, he sprays him in the face, right? And he said, that's for being such a jerk to me this whole time. And I brought my brother Frank as a witness so that you can't tell on me because he'll say that I didn't ever do this. A lot of the brothers didn't like Perc, though, because Perc was so...
He was the boss.
Yeah. Overbearing, I would say, and he demanded that they...
Demanded excellence.
Yeah, they live up to his standards, and his standards were really difficult, know. And that's where he and his twin brother, Ern, really didn't get along. The two of them had a hard time from childhood.
Yeah, well, you told some stories to me about how George sort of pitted them against each other and even called them Percern or... Right?
Yeah, he claimed that he didn't know.
He couldn't tell them apart.
They didn't know their names.
Even though they're not even identical twins.
They're not identical twins.
But
so, yeah.
I think it was just a power play to who can get daddy's love and attention.
Well, and he did that. He pitted them against each other all the time.
Yeah, so,
And Perc was the most like his father. He was very competitive, and he always wanted to win. And Ern was more like, they said that Ern was the most naturally talented of all of them.
Yeah.
He didn't care if he won. He cared if he got it right, if it looked good. So he would take longer, Perc would race to the finish, but Ern's work was always better. There's just so much going on behind the scenes with the Westmores.
There are. I just stop you from doing individual episodes on each person.
Well, I think we might still do a couple because there's so many stories to tell. But
anyways, tell us something good.
Yeah, this one's really juicy. So in 1929, RKO was looking for the first head of their makeup department, and everybody thought George would be a shoo-in for that because he was, the biggest
freaking Westmore
in town, but he was not the most powerful Westmore in town.
Not behind the scenes.
And Perc knew that if George got that job, he couldn't be controlled because he was the father. He was
going to F it up.
Yeah, well, he was the authoritarian, too. He wouldn't listen to Perc, and Perc was steering the ship, basically, for the Westmores. So he stopped his dad from getting that job, and he recommended Ern, his twin, instead.
So he went behind his back.
Yes, and stopped him from getting the gig.
So did George find out?
George, yeah, he definitely found out. And that wasn't the only time that he did this. So when Paramount was looking for a head of their makeup department, everybody thought that George was going to get it again.
Right.
But Perc was like, no, I don't think so. And he...
Was he like an animated character?
He was. Yes, he was. And he was like, no, why don't you get my young brother, Wally, for this? Wally was just 20 years old when he got the head of Paramount Studios.
That's insane.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he did it because he knew that these guys would fall in line with whatever he said. Plus, he could get dirt from them from the other studios that he could pass to Jack Warner.
Jack Warner. Now there's a character.
Yeah. Yeah, he stopped his dad on 2 separate occasions from getting jobs.
So that's not cool.
Well, it just kind of speaks to how bad their home life must have been growing up, that you don't want your dad to do that.
Yeah.
George Westmore traveled from Britain to America with nothing more than talent and a dream. He knew that movies were the 20th century art form, and he knew that he could make them better. He convinced the studios that they needed a makeup department, but more importantly, he convinced the stars that they couldn't live without his talents. His son Perc in many ways usurped his father, creating a legacy around their family name. Perc built up the power, and he realized that his father George had no place in the empire that he was building. Was his dynasty in jeopardy? Perc was cutting his father out, but the Westmore name was being undermined at every turn by his twin brother Ern. Will Perc be able to turn things around? Don't forget to tune in next week, diligent viewer, to find out how the Westmores turn around this calamity and transform themselves into the greatest family of makeup artists in history.
We'll see you guys next time, so thanks for joining us.
Here on Perf Damage.
Carry on.
You're abusing the dog.
I'm not.
Asta's about to knock everything over.
Down. Okay. All right. Crisis averted.